Good evening, everybody, and welcome. Can you hear? You lost me. Okay, so how long? Okay, very good. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary McKelvey. I am just delighted to be here this evening. I'm a partner with Polsinelli, and I am a member of the Los Angeles County Bar Association Board and the Women Lawyers Association of Los Angeles Board. This is a joint task force that has put together the program this evening, and we are just really delighted to be here. We are going to hear from each of the four amazing candidates tonight. We have Aida Ashouri, who's running a little bit late. As soon as she gets here, she'll just come on up to the stage and join us. What I'd like to do tonight is to introduce our panelists very briefly in a sentence or two, because they're going to tell you a little bit about themselves and they're going to have an opportunity to do that. And then I would like to introduce our remarkable moderator, and then I will turn it over to her, and I will then become the timekeeper, and hopefully I figured out how to use this handy dandy little machine. So that remains to be seen. As you may know, and not everyone knows, the city attorney is the chief legal counsel for the city of Los Angeles and often advises the mayor and city council, represents the city in civil litigation, and prosecutes misdemeanors. Tonight's program, again, is presented by the LACBA and WLALA task force, joint task force. Let's start the introductions on this side, because I'm going to buy a little bit of time for Aida. But John McKinney is with us tonight. Thank you for being here with us tonight. John is a deputy district attorney. He's been a prosecutor for nearly 3 decades. He was raised in a working class neighborhood where he saw firsthand what happens when communities are overwhelmed by crime, addiction, and instability. At a young age, he chose to be part of the solution and not fall victim to those realities. Thank you again for being here with us tonight, John.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And we also have Marissa Roy here on the end. Marissa is the Deputy Attorney General. She's a lifelong Angelino who has spent her career fighting for the people. From her start with the City Attorney's Office to her current role at the Deputy Attorney General, Marissa has worked to protect working families, renters, immigrants, and all Californians. And here to my right, we have Hydee Feldstein-Soto, who is serving currently as the LA City Attorney. She has called LA home for more than 40 years. She is the first female city attorney in LA history and the first Latina elected citywide. She is currently leading a team of more than 1,000 legal professionals, including 550 plus attorneys, and has been doing so since November of 2022. Thank you for joining us, Hydee. December of 2022. Okay, and then we will have Aida Ashouri with us shortly. She is a human rights attorney. She spent her career on the front lines defending immigrants, standing up for working families, protecting our environment, and fighting for survivors. We do have a text from her, and she will be here shortly. I think she ran into some traffic. And we are delighted to have for you tonight our moderator, Judge Songhai Armstead, who I've had the pleasure of just getting to know over the past 48 hours. She serves as the director of the Los Angeles County Justice, Care, and Opportunities Department, commonly referred to as JCOD. She leads the county's work in prevention, diversion, reentry, and community-based care. Since the department's launch in 2022, Judge Armstead has overseen initiatives that connect justice-impacted individuals to mental health and substance use treatments, housing support, employment and job training, and navigation services designed to help people successfully transition and thrive in their communities. The agency, and it's an important part, and I just learned this agency interacts with the LA City Attorney's Office primarily around criminal justice reform, diversion programs, homelessness response, reentry services, and alternatives to incarceration. So it makes Judge Armstead a very uniquely qualified, with firsthand knowledge and a really great person to be moderating this panel. She's a former judge of the Los Angeles Superior Court. She brings more than 2 decades of experience working across one of the nation's largest justice system. Early in her career as a prosecutor in the office of the Los Angeles City Attorney, she developed innovative programs supporting veterans, people experiencing homelessness, and individuals living with mental health and substance use disorders, work that received both state and national recognition. Under her leadership, the JCOD has managed hundreds of community partnerships, expanded support for community-based organizations through the Incubation Academy, and helped tens of thousands of residents connect to critical services through the Justice Connect Support Center. The department also administers more than $350 million in Care First community investment grants supporting organizations throughout Los Angeles County. So she brings a lot to the party. But while I was looking and researching her and learning about her, I came across a quote that she wrote, which I just thought summed up, I've known her just for a moment, but sort of sums up my sense of her. And this is a quote written by Judge Songhai Armstead. "Achieving infinite potential requires the courage to continuously embrace and navigate through discomfort." Amen to that. And without further ado,
good evening. I'm actually going to try to disconnect this because I'm too tall. Let's see if I can do it. There it is. Okay, good evening. How are you guys? Okay, this is going to be exciting. They're giving them a very short amount of time to answer a bunch of questions. This is also super exciting to me because it's like a homecoming. I started my criminal career actually in the city attorney's office, so it's exciting to see some of the people who helped raise me up from the beginning of my career and taught me everything I know about the law. But I also learned that the city attorney's office has lots of facets. There are lots of parts that people don't understand. A lot of people just they only think about the civil or the municipal or the criminal, and they don't know that they do all of it. And they all intertwine, and I think people really miss that, right? And I think that we're constantly spending time trying to educate people about how important this office is and the amazing work that can take place and does take place and has taken place historically. So thank you for those of you who are present, and we'll go ahead and get started. I thank you for stalling and giving me that very long introduction. It's a little bit embarrassing, but we'll go ahead and get started. Like I said, this is like speed dating. They have like a couple of minutes to make you fall in love with them. So let's see how this goes. Okay, here we go. So we're going to start with you, Ms. Roy. Can you introduce yourself and tell us why you're seeking to serve as a city attorney? You have 2 minutes, and the timer is there. Let's go.
All right, hello everyone. I'm Marissa Roy, and I'm running for LA City Attorney because this office could be the largest and most significant public interest law office in this city. A lot of people don't know what the City Attorney's Office does, but it has wide-ranging powers, from defending the city to advising city departments, misdemeanor prosecution, and then one that isn't often talked about: the power to sue the Trump administration, the power to sue any corporation for anything unlawful, unfair, or deceptive. I have spent my entire career working in government as the people's attorney. I got my start at the LA City Attorney's Office, where I built cases against wage theft and won tens of thousands of dollars back for working people. I went on to represent LA County as outside counsel in over a dozen legal actions against the first Trump administration, protecting our sanctuary county against Trump's racist immigration agenda. And now at the California Department of Justice, I'm proud to work in the Consumer Protection section, where I do tenants' rights work and went after a landlord for unlawful evictions and keeping tenants in uninhabitable conditions. And just at the end of February, we secured $500,000 back for those tenants. Now I'm part of a 30-state action against Meta, where we're arguing that they have crafted the apps to be addictive, and we're trying to recover for all the health harms they've caused youth. This is the wide-ranging work that we could be doing at our own LA City Attorney's Office. But out of 1,000 legal professionals, less than 5% do public rights work. I want to make sure that we get the office back on track and then maximize its potential to be an office that serves the people. And I have the unique experience to do that as the person with the most experience suing the Trump administration, the most experience holding big tech accountable, and the most experience suing abusive corporations to protect the people.
And she had 9 seconds left. Good job. Okay, Mr. McKinney, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is John McKinney, and I thank you for the opportunity to address you today. I've worked for the last 28 years as a public servant in the DA's office. Over the course of my career, I have litigated thousands of cases. I've prosecuted 40 murder cases, 40 highly complex murder cases, resulting in convictions in all the cases. But my journey didn't start here in LA, and it didn't start in the courtroom. I'm actually from Northeast New Jersey. I was born into a low-income neighborhood, got off to a rough start in my life. I lost both of my parents by 5 years old. I was orphaned, taken in by my sister, raised in a household of 5 children led by her, and came of age during the crack cocaine epidemic, where I got a front row seat to the ravages of drug abuse, drug addiction, and the attendant crime to those kinds of activities. That was a lesson for me. I avoided all those pitfalls. I worked hard. I worked my way through college and got a wonderful opportunity to come here to Los Angeles to attend the UCLA School of Law. After graduating in 1997, I took a job with the DA's office. I'm running for city attorney because the city needs a fighter. The city needs an attorney who has a proven record of success in the legal system. I've done it for 28 years. I'm a winner. I win on behalf of people. I've represented victims in courtrooms all across the county of Los Angeles, and I can't stand idly by and watch what's happening to this great city that I love so much. I'm running for city attorney to improve public safety in this city. I'm running to protect taxpayer dollars, and I'm running to end the scourge of homelessness and the lack of compassion that I see being extended toward our neighbors, our most vulnerable, who are literally living in sewers and parks and on sidewalks. As city attorney, that will not happen on my watch. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll jump over to Ms. Feldstein-Soto.
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 Yes, good evening. I'm Hydee Feldstein-Soto. I was elected in 2022 with 4 decades of experience in private practice that touched nearly every aspect of what this office does. I walked into an office that I thought I was prepared to handle, but that had a number of surprises for me, one in which my predecessor had been raided by the FBI. So I got to work right away on day one by focusing on the promises I had made. Public safety, including my Figueroa Street initiative, which has rescued over 250 kids from sex traffickers, public integrity, including stopping cozy no-bid contracts and shady referral fees from lawyers who sue the city, and public services, including access to justice and shutting down nuisance and party houses. Special interests, used to getting special treatment, have reacted vociferously to my tenure. The trial lawyers feeding on repeat lawsuits against the city have contributed more than 50% of the total dollars raised by Ms. Roy or her super PACs. And Airbnb, who I sued for price gouging fire victims, put $1.5 million into this campaign for Mr. McKinney. The return on investment with me is clear. I call balls and strikes fairly without fear or favor, and I always side with you, with the residents, with the voters, with the immigrants, with the vulnerable populations of this city, those used to funding the City Hall machine, who think they are entitled to profit from government contracts, or trying to find a city attorney who will let them get back to business as usual. I say no, not on my watch. I am here to do this job, not as a stepping stone to a political career. I cannot be bought with current or future contributions. My independence, commitment, unparalleled experience, and core competence is what I hope you agree our city needs now, and needs it now more than ever.
Thanks, Ms. Feldstein-Soto. And we're going to jump over Ms. Ashouri. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, correct.
Okay. So you've been introduced already, and the question at hand is if you can introduce yourself and tell us why you are seeking to serve as LA City Attorney. And you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. My name is Aida Ashouri, and one of my slogans is immigrants make LA, and that's because it's true. As an immigrant, I came here at the young age of 7 years old and grew up in working class communities, sharing 1-bedroom apartments with my single mom. And because we both experienced prejudice, xenophobia, and a lack of resources. That experience of those injustices is what propelled me to become an attorney today. And that's why I became a housing rights attorney, an immigrant rights attorney, and even worked in the city attorney's office. And that's where I saw the problems firsthand of racial profiling, of criminalization of poverty that was under the prior city attorney's office, and it continues to this day. And that's what I want to resolve. I'm the only candidate on this stage that actually wants to change the city attorney's office to work for the people. I'm the only candidate on this stage that actually has a platform to make sure that we're prosecuting the people who are actually committing real harm in our communities and not people who are just poor. I'm the only one on this stage that's actually worked in the criminal division of the city attorney's office in Los Angeles and in another city in San Diego. I'm the only one on this stage that actually grew up in the communities of Los Angeles, growing up in Canoga Park and in North Hollywood. And having that direct experience is not something you can learn in a paper or in a white paper or from a nonprofit. I know people have a lot of money in this campaign, but they don't have the heart, the perspective, and the grit that I do as an immigrant. And that's something that you cannot buy with hundreds of thousands of dollars of PAC money. In fact, it's quite the opposite. When you stand with your values and integrity, oftentimes money doesn't come to you. It's the exact opposite. But you know what does? Is people. And that's why I'm the only people-powered campaign on this stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ashouri. So we're going to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to start the conversation, so we'll just continue to move down the line. For the next series of questions, each candidate will have 90 seconds, so it's going to get quicker and quicker, faster and faster. They may respond to the question posed, or they can respond to another candidate's statements. Okay, it's getting spicy. You ready? So the next one is, how do you view the three core functions of the city attorney's office as prosecutor, litigator, both defense and affirmative litigation, and municipal advisor? This is a compound question, okay? If you're elected, how would you prioritize these functions and strategies, and any strategies that you would implement to increase collaboration across each role? And then the next part of the question is, one of the litigation team's important roles is defending and resolving civil liability claims, such as personal injury, employment, and civil rights lawsuits. Historically, it's about $300 million in judgments and settlements that the city pays out every year against public entities. And what are your views on a proposed damages cap? And do you have any ideas for reducing the city's litigation-related liability? So, you got all that? Yeah? It's a good question, though, right? I think it's a good question. You ready? 90 seconds. We're going to start with you, Mr. McKinney.
Okay. Let me try to answer all those questions. I believe all the core functions of the city attorney's office are important, but none more important than the city attorney's role as protector. And I know that only makes up about 35% of what the city attorney does, but public safety has to be the #1 priority of every elected official in Los Angeles. It's like the foundation to a home. None of the other things, important things that government does are important if you don't have public safety. So I'll lead with that. But as city attorney, I'll also try to modernize the office. I don't know how old their information technology is, but if it's like the DA's office, ours is about 30 years old. We need better data sharing between the parts of the office that are allowed to talk to each other. When it comes to the issue of capping damages, I believe that the best remedy is prevention. I would much rather that people don't get harmed in a way that leads to lawsuits than worry about how much the city has to pay out if the city is responsible for harming people. And I will address that by aggressively seeking to work with every department head in the city to make sure that we have a meaningful way of assessing risk to identify the patterns of behavior that lead to lawsuits in the first place.
Awesome, thank you. Ms. Feldstein-Soto, same question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Let me just say that since council and the mayor control our budget, I would put the most important function as being the municipal advisor. Without that, we don't have anything else. But in all seriousness, being sure that our city is acting within its charter and its constitution, being responsible to the voters, enacting the policies that council passes true to their intent is probably the most important function. Yes, public safety is important, but we need to remember that the prosecutorial function of this is really quality of life. It is as much crime prevention and suppression, diversion, giving people alternatives to incarceration that keep them from repeat offending and keep them from recidivism. As for the punitive damages cap, for the damages cap, we are not liable for punitive damages. Municipalities are not. I want to point out that 38 states in the United States of America already cap the soft costs. Nobody has suggested that we should not make up for the harm that we cause people if the city is in fact responsible. But there are a number of cases where the city's not there. It's an intersection. A drunk driver hits a pedestrian, a motorcycle goes down, and somebody claims it's because we had to improve the intersection. We do pay the economic cost no matter what, but I did suggest that things like anxiety, PTSD, long-term kind of pain and suffering is something that should be capped as it is in other states at amounts between $250,000 and $400,000. I suggested $1 million cap. I thought that was relatively generous.
And that's time. Thank you.
Thank you. And to you, Ms. Ashouri.
The functions of the city are important in terms of making sure that the city is following the law, protecting the population's rights, and making sure the city is protected from risk and liability, and these all go hand in hand. We want to protect protesters from the use of force, so we enforce those injunctions, unlike our current city attorney has done. We want to protect the city from the environmental harm, so we want to advise departments and the city to actually enforce environmental law effectively, which we're not seeing right now. We want to protect cyclists from harm, so we want to effectively advise on Measure HLA to fix our streets, which is currently not happening. And we want to reduce poverty and systemic racism, so we want to exercise prosecutorial discretion, which is I'm the only candidate that's going to do that. And we want to protect people's civil rights and our sanctuary city policy to make sure that we break ties with Flock, so that way we are enforcing our sanctuary city policies and we're not opening our city to more liability, which is exactly the same thing that the Berkeley city attorney has actually advised. And I'm glad, John, that you've actually gotten that 35% number that actually came from my social media and my website, because I actually obtained that number from a Public Records Act request from the city attorney's office, because that's not publicly available information. And so I think a cap is actually infringing on victims' rights. I think it's not the correct move, and actually it really reflects to me other types of laws suppressing the plaintiff's rights, like we're seeing in other measures like Uber right now trying to move for a ballot initiative to
Ms.
cap
Ashouri, that's
rights for plaintiffs in their auto accidents. Thank you.
Thank you. And to you, Ms. Roy.
Sure. All of these component parts are part of a whole with the shared goal of serving the public. But since your question was so much about liability, let's focus on how defending against liability payouts serve the public. We are in a liability crisis where this city attorney has overspent hundreds of millions of dollars, and it plunged us into deficit last year and nearly cost 1,600 layoffs. This has not been a problem in past administrations, but in this administration, this city attorney overspent by $100 million in her first year, $200 million in her second year, and nearly $250 million in her third year, when we are resolving around the same amount of cases. It's because she's outsourcing to pricey law firms charging thousands of dollars an hour when we have our own deputy city attorneys who can do the work. It's because she has no litigation experience and doesn't know which cases to settle and is forcing cases to trial for nuclear verdicts. And her response is to try to cap damages so that if you are hit by a bus and paralyzed for life with lifelong millions of dollars of medical costs, tough. That's what she says. No, I am not going to blame victims. I am going to make sure we prevent. I'm going to make sure we cut spending on outside pricey law firms to get litigation costs down. I'm going to make sure we're valuing cases early and accurately. And we're going to invest in compliance so we make sure departments are following the law and we do not make the same mistake twice.
With 7 seconds to spare. Okay, thank you. And we're going to start with you now, Ms. Feldstein-Soto. Once again, you can respond to the question posed, or you can respond to another candidate's statements. And the question for you is, the City Charter Reform Commission has recommended splitting the office of the city attorney into two different positions. So one would be an elected prosecutor like Long Beach, and then an appointed city attorney for civil and municipal council. Do you have an opinion about cutting your job in half? Any wisdom on this recommendation?
Since I submitted a letter to City Council opposing it, yes, I have an opinion. But I do want to take a second to respond. Number one, I in fact have a decade of litigation experience. That's what I did for the first 10 years of my practice. I don't talk about it very much because that's not where I was ranked in Chambers Global or Who's Who, or where I made really my bones in the practice of law. But I was in fact a litigator, and I had dozens of bench trials. I've never had a jury trial. I would also say that in terms of farming cases out, our own civil litigators are overworked. They have over 90 cases apiece. And it is my lawyers who are begging me to send cases out. We literally just got inundated with another 63 protest cases, and the civil litigators have asked to have them sent out. My chief deputy has tried to reassign those cases, but they has not been able to do so. We have an open application. Anyone who would like to be a litigator with my office, please apply. I have asked council for more positions, and I am told that I will get 12 more positions for civil litigators, assuming that the budget can provide for it. On the city charter reform, it is the strength of the office that it is an elected official who can remain true to the charter, remain true to the Constitution, and give advice that is not welcome, and do what we need to do to ensure that the city is functioning within the parameters outlined for city governance. Thank you.
Thank you. And we're moving on to Ms. Ashouri. Same question.
This is something that I actually agree with the current city attorney on. I think, and the previous city attorney, Mike Fuhrer, that splitting up this office takes away the rights of people to vote for their own representatives. It also produces a bigger risk of corruption as the position becomes basically indoctrinated towards the mayor and city council, primarily the mayor. And we already have a history of corruption in our city where we have real estate developers interfering with our city politics as they have primarily invested in a lot of people on this stage, their campaigns. And I've actually met with people from the League of Women Voters and the current city attorney of the LACAA, the city attorney union, and they actually agree with me as well that splitting up this office ends up basically shortchanging the voters in terms of having someone that reflects who they want versus what the mayor wants. And we are going to have a situation where we're not going to see the Brown Act enforced, even though we aren't really seeing that happen currently, but it's even going to be a greater risk where we have the mayor picking someone that they want. And unlike half of the people on this stage, I actually have done many jury trials, understand the impacts of jury trials and litigation in this situation and when to take something to trial. And so I think having that unparalleled experience and also being connected to the union itself and having them being very much unsupportive of a lot of my ideas, I think is really important to be a city attorney and have their support.
And Ms. Roy?
Let's be clear. There wouldn't be anyone even considering charter reform if the current city attorney had not gone so rogue. This office has operated as a dual-function office for over a century, but this city attorney has lost the faith of the city council and the charter commission. It's because she's been blocking contracts, critical contracts, and affordable housing. It's because she's been overspending on outside counsel beyond what the city council had authorized. It's because she's returning ordinances that don't match the drafter's original intent. That is why this office is considering being split up, because if you had an attorney who spent beyond what you had authorized without your permission, who wasn't communicating and consulting with you, and who was actively undermining things that you approved, wouldn't you want to fire that attorney? That's the question that's being asked. Now, here's the thing. This is about accountability at the end of the day. This is for the voters to decide. I want to let that debate play out without putting my thumb on the scale, because I will write whatever they pass. But here's what I will commit to do. No matter which way charter reform goes, I will add common sense accountability measures so that we're mandating better communication between the city attorney and the client, so that the city attorney cannot overspend without permission. I will make sure that I leave this office with more restrictions than I entered, because we need to prevent against another city attorney who abuses this role like the incumbent.
And to you, Mr. McKinney.
Thank you. This question is really about leadership. And the only reason that we're talking about this topic tonight is because there is widespread and a growing lack of confidence in the current city attorney's ability to run her own office. It is widely known that morale in that office is at an all-time low. The city attorney has been the subject of lawsuits and alleged ethical violations. She has been failing the office on the criminal side by almost immediately getting rid of the very popular neighborhood prosecutor program. She dismantled other specialized divisions that prosecuted domestic violence and gang and gun-related crimes. On the civil side, she's been losing lawsuits. She's the most sued city attorney in history. Our city is paying out more per case than ever before in history, and she's spending more money on outside law firms than any city attorney in history. And that's why we're talking about this tonight. With the right leadership, this office should remain a dual-function city attorney's office, as it has been for most of its 175-year history. It's important that an office like the city attorney views the city's challenges holistically, because a lot of the issues that come up, whether it's public safety related or liability related, are interconnected.
Okay. All right. So we're going to start with you, Ms. Ashouri. And remember, once again, you have the opportunity to answer the question, or you can respond to the question posed, or respond to another candidate's statements, okay? And this is going to be a layered question. You missed the intro where they talked about the department that I run. Because I run a department in the County of Los Angeles called Los Angeles County's Justice Care and Opportunities Department. We do diversion, prevention, and reentry services for the 18 and over population. And with that in mind, that includes everything from workforce development, case management, housing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we're talking about the criminal justice system now a little bit. So with that in mind, what strategies, programming, and resources would you prioritize in this role to help provide necessary resources and improve community trust and outcomes, and really just improve community safety?
Thank you for that question. And one thing I wanted to clarify is that LA Forward is actually an organization that is pushing for this position to become appointed, and Ms. Roy is actually on their board. So I think it's really important to have a really direct answer whether or not she supports this move. But as I did give a direct answer. But I wanted to go to criminal justice. This is really important for me, as I'm only one of two candidates on this stage that actually has criminal justice experience. And I think it's really important to have actual experience for the job, because this position impacts people who are survivors of violence, people who are hit by cars, and right now more people are getting killed by cars right now than homicides, and people who are unhoused. So it's important to have this experience. And the city attorney has employed diversion programs for decades, and they're extremely important in terms of making sure that people have alternatives to incarceration. But I also think we should employ other measures, which are restorative justice, mediation, and alternative dispute resolution, so that way we can resolve cases even before they get into the criminal justice system. And the neighborhood prosecutor program can also be utilized in this measure, because I, as a deputy city attorney, actually have worked in this division, and I've seen firsthand people who are unhoused or even neighbor disputes being resolved in a criminal trial rather than outside of that venue. And I think it's a waste of taxpayer dollars, not just for the trial, but to have 75 people be called to a panel to be taken out of work just because someone who was unhoused or someone had a dispute with their neighbor is going to trial.
That's time, Ms. Ashouri. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Roy.
First of all, I just want to thank you so much for the work you do, because often when we talk about public safety, we're given a very one-size-fits-all solution. And here's the thing. This isn't the district attorney's office. The city attorney's office doesn't handle murder. It handles misdemeanors. And there is a wide range of misdemeanors. Therefore, we need a wide range of approaches, some that emphasize prevention, that go to the root causes of crime. Now, let's be clear, because you're about to, I'm sure, hear some misinformation from my opponents. Where there is a crime of violence and when there is a public safety risk, I will prosecute, I have no qualms. But when, for the many, many misdemeanors, where they are nonviolent, where there is an underlying mental health or addiction issue, it is more effective to use diversion, which is a court-supervised program, still accountability, that connects people with the resources they need and is demonstrated to reduce the likelihood of reoffending. That's how we help someone get back on their feet, stop cycling in and out of our jail system, break cycles of criminalization, and it makes the community safer. I will work with the prosecutors on the office to use all of the tools available, and I will also bring back the neighborhood prosecutor program because that broke the line of communication between our communities and the city attorney's office. We need to rebuild trust with communities and build public safety strategies that can be tailored to all of the issues every single community faces.
Thank you. Mr. McKinney.
Thank you. While I did talk about my many murder cases, I did not go into my full resume. Not only did I prosecute misdemeanors as a deputy DA, I also supervised 2 offices that oversaw the work of other DAs prosecuting misdemeanors, one in East LA and one downtown in the Metropolitan Courthouse. I also oversee our juvenile division, where most of our active 5,000 cases are cases in which we use diversion to try to change the behavior of our young people. As somebody who spent decades in the criminal justice system, I am fully aware that many people entering the system entered as damaged people. They suffered years of abuse, untreated trauma, addiction, and other disabilities. And we treat them as the individuals they are, and as city attorney, I'll continue to do that. I don't anticipate that anybody prosecuted for a misdemeanor will go to jail and be incarcerated. We have to lean into alternatives to incarceration. We have to use diversion. We have to be creative in thinking of ways that we can invest in people, because accountability doesn't mean punishment. It also means investing in people and giving them an opportunity to learn and be better. As city attorney, I'll do what I've done for 28 years as a DA. Be fair and look for smart solutions, because we don't want future victims.
Thank you. And to you, Ms. Feldstein-Soto.
I'd like to say that when the facts are on your side, pound on the facts. When the law is on your side, pound on the law. And when neither's on your side, pound on the table. And I think I'm the table in this debate. Having said that, I'd rather answer the question and then get back to some of the misstatements. We do have a lot of these programs. We have a HEART program, which is an outreach program to those who are unsheltered. We lost the grant for it, and I have picked that up in my budget and found the money to continue funding it. I was the first city attorney to agree to participate in an outdoor court. So why is that? Because folks who are unsheltered come to a courthouse and they have to leave their pets, their belongings, and their children outside. And so by bringing the court to them at the Refresh Spot in Skid Row, we can help people and meet them where they are. I met with the presiding judge, the assistant presiding judge, and the court executive just this afternoon to talk about opening a second outdoor court in the Valley or in North Hollywood, and we're in the process of trying to find that. The Neighborhood Justice Program, which we run out of my office, is a restorative justice program. I expanded the hours to include evening hours so that we could help first-time offenders by having working people, younger people, folks who in fact were not coming to our neighborhood justice program as volunteers, so they could be represented on the panel that is instructing them to make amends. And we do have city attorney hearings, dispute resolution programs. None of these ideas are new. I have supported them, I have expanded them, and in some cases I've initiated them.
Soto, thank you.
Thank you very much. You ready for the next one? Okay.
Hit me with it.
Okay. So it's going to be layered again. Actually, you know what? I'm going to jump to something else. Let's talk about housing and homelessness. Okay? Housing instability and homelessness remain major concerns for Los Angeles city residents, right? What role should the LA City Attorney and the office play in addressing homelessness, housing insecurity, and barriers to stability? And what approaches would you take to address homelessness?
Sure. The city attorney's office can be one of the most significant offices from preventing homelessness. Now, you're going to hear probably a lot of talk by my colleagues about 4118, the anti-camping ordinance. I'm against the criminalization of homelessness, and when it was a misdemeanor, I was fully against incarcerating people for sleeping on our streets and cycling them in and out of our jail system. But here's the thing, now it's not a misdemeanor, it's infraction, and no one here is enforcing 4118 in the city attorney's office. That's not within our jurisdiction. But here's what we can do. Prosecute the abusive landlords who are unlawfully evicting people into homelessness. There have been 23,000 complaints of tenant harassment filed, but only one landlord cited by this current city attorney. And she likes to often say, I'll give you addresses, I'll give you addresses. Let me tell you a building. Barrington Plaza. It was the largest mass eviction, evicting 700 rent-stabilized tenants. It was found unlawful by a court, but by then it was too late because this city attorney has sat on her hands when the tenants begged for her help. Where are those tenants now? We have a city attorney who is not taking action to hold landlords accountable because she is entirely funded by landlords. I am a tenants' rights attorney who has won back over $500,000 for tenants. I will dramatically scale up the tenants' rights work we do because when we keep people housed, that is how we prevent homelessness.
Thank you. Mr. McKinney.
Yes. When I hear the phrase criminalization of homelessness, what I immediately think of is that it's criminal to allow homelessness. It is not compassion to allow people to live the way they're living, especially when we know many of them don't have the capacity to make the kind of decisions that need to be made for their well-being. I've talked about what I call compassionate accountability, and it's not rocket science. It's leaders doing the unglamorous work that leaders need to do sometimes. That means we lead with a helping hand and a gentle touch. We invite people in. We work with the mayor's office to get people inside. And it's an offer, but it's one that we have to insist on. We have to insist on it, not just because the public is entitled to their space, and this city is entitled to be vibrant once again. We insist on it because it's the moral and right thing to do for people. When the city attorney talks about an outdoor court, it sounds creative, it sounds nice, but what I hear is just another way to accommodate homelessness. No, we're not going to have outdoor courts. We're going to have people living inside, and we're going to make it easy for them to walk inside of a court and handle their business inside. That's the kind of city LA needs to return to being, the kind of city it was for most of its history.
Thank you.
Ms. Feldstein-Soto.
I'd like to say I'm already doing this work. I hired a tenants' rights activist from day one. I have a rapid response team that has rolled out to buildings on Imperial Highway, to buildings on Florence, to buildings on Gage. I have engaged with landlords across the city, and we have amicably resolved a number of situations. Where we can't amicably resolve, we have sued. Whether it's Van Owen in the Valley or a matter involving the Purians right now, which are under further investigation for tenant anti-harassment. We do try to work with landlords because at the end of the day, what everybody wants is a habitable, rent-stabilized apartment. I don't want to red tag buildings that kicks more people out into the street. Within 3 months of taking office, I took action to declare a public health and safety receivership, which saved 2,000 low-income units on Skid Row. And I have gone around the city trying to make sure that we are implementing the mayor's orders. We have SPED approved 44,000 units across the city for affordability. We have tried to buy properties. We have worked hand in hand with the mayor's office, whether it be the Mayfair Hotel purchase or other kinds of rehabilitative circumstances. And we are currently working with the mayor's office on developing ways to expedite.
Ms. Feldstein-Soto, that's time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Ms. Ashouri.
Thanks, that's a lot to cover. First, I wanted to say, if you actually had experience in criminal justice, you would see that homelessness is still prosecuted under trespass and other laws, which is what I saw, Ms. Roy. Also, I don't think it's very compassionate to people who are unhoused, who are sleeping outside in jail, which is something that you have put on your website and other interviews, John. And I think Ms. Hydee, Ms. Feldstein-Soto, you established a real estate section and you put in charge someone from your campaign who started an HOA. So I don't know who this tenant rights person is. But I think as city attorney, I would advise the city against punitive sweeps that are destroying people's property. And we had a Brown Act violation because 9,000 homeless encampments were targeted to be swept behind closed doors. That wasn't reported, and we had to pay $2 million in legal fees because of that. We want to make sure that affordable housing is being approved, unlike what's happening currently. I would also support a vacancy tax, and I would make sure that we are enforcing our short-term rental laws and against Airbnb, and that's why Airbnb isn't giving me money like with John. I want to make sure that we are ensuring that we actually have housing stock. And I want to make sure that tenants are defended from harassment and illegal rent increases, and the code enforcement unit that was actually going after slumlords was actually closed by the current city attorney. So I'm not sure how slumlords are being gone after if that unit is being closed.
That's time, and thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with you, Mr. McKinney. So you have worked a lot with LAPD, I would imagine.
Yes.
Okay, so with that in mind, the city attorney's office's largest client is the LAPD. So how would you work with LAPD to enhance public safety while also addressing concerns about police misconduct?
All right. Well, as you noted, I've worked shoulder to shoulder with every level of policing in the Los Angeles Police Department over the years. I have a great deal of respect for the service that police officers provide to our community. I know firsthand how difficult that job is, and I know if you do not work with police, you may not see all of the nuance but important dangers and risks that they face on a day-to-day basis. It's not just being shot. There are a lot of problems that police officers suffer both mentally and physically by being on that job. I'm very proud to have the endorsement of the Los Angeles Police Protective League. And I will say this, though, they are a large source of liabilities for the city, and that is not sustainable. That has to be addressed. And I will also say that police officers have to be held accountable. I mean, we confer a level of trust in police officers that we don't confer in any other person or any other profession. And they have to live up to the high standards of restraint and professionalism that we expect as citizens every day. I've demanded that as a deputy DA for 28 years. I will be no different as city attorney. I say it loudly, I say it clearly, I say it to their faces. Professionalism and excellence is the standard.
Thank you, Mr. McKinney. That's time.
Okay, Ms. Feldstein-Soto, same question.
Thank you. I have tried to put a renewed focus on public safety in all of its facets from my first day in office. We work closely with the Los Angeles Police Department, just as we do with the Los Angeles Fire Department, the Housing Department, the Board of Public Works, the airport, the Department of Water and Power, and every other department that comprises this city. Yes, LAPD is larger in terms of numbers. The Los Angeles Police Department today has approximately 8,500 officers. We have about 38,000 employees across the city, so that is a very significant size department. Yes, the Los Angeles Police Department results in a number of liabilities. By the way, so does sanitation, so does a number of other areas. But at the end of the day, the work that officers do is dangerous. It is necessarily one that's going to involve confrontation and that's going to involve accidents and liability. And so we try to distinguish the raw numbers of liability from culpability. And it is our job, where there is a defensible position, to defend the officers at issue. We work on advising the department. We send out people on regular trainings to stations. We work with folks in the stations to ensure that they are in compliance with their obligations. I want to say one thing about an injunction that I opposed. It imposed a different standard on the LAPD than on any other law enforcement agency.
Thank you,
and
Ms.
it made the
Feldstein-Soto.
city
That's
liable
time.
for
Thank
the
you.
other agencies.
Okay, same question to you, Ms. Ashouri.
Thank you. I want to make sure one thing clear. LAPD is not our client. The city is our client. And we want to make sure that we're protecting the people in the city from any misconduct. And we should not be intervening on an injunction that's going to commit the day before a protest that can actually produce harm against protesters and journalists alike. I've been on all sides. I've experienced police misconduct and brutality. I've advocated for people against misconduct, and I've worked with police as a deputy city attorney. I'm the only person, I think, on this table that has all these experiences. And I think a big issue is the city attorney needs to do better on advising LAPD policy. For instance, with Keenan Anderson, the cousin of Black Lives Matter founder, who was visiting Los Angeles, he was tased to death when LAPD tased him 6 times at one point more than 30 seconds, which resulted in his death. And LAPD has no policy on how many times or how long you can tase someone. As well, we should not be taking cases to trial that basically put LAPD in a situation of impunity. The case of Valentina, a 14-year-old who died because of reckless misconduct of a police officer, should not have gone to trial. That should have been settled. We should not be causing more harm in our community, and we should not be filing cases and exercising prosecutorial discretion to make sure that we're not filing cases that evidence police misconduct, and that's how we also get rid of the root of the issue.
Thank you. Ms. Roy.
We are all safer, and the city saves money when LAPD is following the law. As city attorney, it will be my job to work with all departments on public safety, but also make sure that no department is above the law. That's where me and the incumbent differ. Let's talk about that injunction. Last September, LAPD was delivered an injunction because they had used less lethal weapons, rubber bullets, against journalists during protests and caused severe injury. A court ordered restrictions on their use of less lethal weapons as crowd control during protests. Now, this is not a new issue. It's something the city had been sued about in 2000, in 2007, and in 2020, and had lost every single time to the detriment of taxpayers. Now, the city attorney had 6 weeks to get the department in line, issue new protocols in compliance with that injunction. Instead, the day before the No Kings protest, she sought to lift the injunction. Now, she has qualms that she's raised after the fact, but here's the thing, any good litigator knows you can always modify an injunction. Motioning to lift an injunction is an ask for a free pass, and it's a disservice to our community because it doesn't keep us safer, and it doesn't prevent LAPD from the same violations again. This has just exposed the taxpayers to more liability payouts than endangers our budget. I would be responsible about getting LAPD and every single department into compliance with all laws to prevent lawsuits.
Thank you. And Ms. Feldstein-Soto, the next question to you is around technology. And to Mr. McKinney's comment earlier about how most government agencies are pretty out of date, right? So technology can improve both efficiency and access to services. How would you prioritize technology, data, and digital tools to improve operations, transparency, and community outcomes while maintaining privacy and security?
I think I can answer this question very quickly, and then I want to move to a couple of things. On this question, I have asked for an increase in technology every year that I've been in office. I have submitted budgets to City Council every year that I've been in office to upgrade the technology on both the criminal and the civil side. We are finally going to get the new criminal technology this year, thank goodness, because currently it's very difficult for my office to comply with the requirements for technology set down by the state and the federal government. On the civil side, we're exploring our options. I want to take 1 minute. If anyone says that I didn't try to settle any case, especially the tragedy of a 14-year-old child, I take strong exception to that. Let us assume that at a $100 million demand, the case was not settlable, not because I wasn't willing to settle, not because I wasn't willing to put significant dollars on the table, but because I wasn't willing to provide a lottery ticket for what was a mistake. Secondly, on the injunction, it's very clear that it only applied to the Los Angeles Police Department, and when you're faced with protests that dwarf the size of your police force, and you know you're going to have to call for mutual aid, and that was something that was not apparent immediately, then calling for mutual aid would necessarily have subjected the city of Los Angeles to liability that for the actions of the Riverside Sheriff's Department, the Orange County Sheriff's Department, the Los Angeles Sheriff's Department, and the
Thank you, Ms.
police
Feldstein-Soto.
departments from
That's
around
time.
the county.
Thank you.
Okay. And now to you, Ms. Ashouri.
I just want to sit for a minute that we just heard that the death of a child was just referred to as a lottery ticket. I just want to sit with that. So I want to first say we might have to go to floppy disk to prevent another data leak in our office because I want to make sure that we're protecting our data. Unlike our current city attorney, I would definitely password protect third-party software that we're using for data storage. And that's something I think even a new attorney would know about. I want to update, obviously, the tech, and also I want to utilize tech and technology and social media and our website to make sure to keep people abreast of transparency, because that's something we're lacking incredibly in all areas of our city, is making sure that people are updated on what's happening in our city and are informed, and that's something I've already been doing with my campaign, trying to educate people on the law, educate people and inform people of what the office does. And I want to make it easier for people to access information on the Public Records Act request, which under the current city attorney, which even though she advertised in her campaign she would make it easier, the exact opposite has happened, where it's actually become more restrictive, and she's even gone after a journalist for accessing public records, and we had to pay $300,000 in legal fees as a result. And one technology I want to break from is actually flock surveillance, and we shouldn't be actually engaging in any contracts with that company.
I'm going to go out of order real quick. Ms. Feldstein-Soto, did you want to, you have 30 seconds to correct the record if you'd like.
What I was referring to as a lottery ticket was $100 million. Plaintiffs' lawyers take 50% of it. So just like when the county paid $4 billion for child abuse, $2 billion went into the pockets of the lawyers. I husband the city's money. I take care of what the city has, and I try to protect us from overpayment. I do support the First Amendment and journalists with all my heart and all my soul and all my might. But when a standard is imposed upon the city that subjects us to liability for the actions of other agencies, I have no choice but to act.
Thank you. It's time. Thank you. Okay. Back to technology. Okay.
Yes.
Same question to you, Ms. Roy.
Back to technology. This is where I think I'm going to have to level, and I think actually probably everybody, maybe it's the only thing we all agree on. I don't think any of us are tech experts. Lawyers often aren't. We will need to use new technologies, but we're going to need to make sure that we are relying on the experts in the office when they advise about how we keep data safe. Now here's the thing. There was a critical data breach about 6 weeks ago. 300,000 documents had been stored in a Dropbox without password protection. And the city attorney tried to downplay this as civil litigation files, but civil litigation files include personnel records, they include victims' health information, they include personal identifying information. These should have been protected, and here's the thing, this was preventable because whistleblowers in the office, tech experts, had been calling attention to the lax data privacy protections. Instead, the city attorney retaliated against them. There are 2 whistleblower lawsuits actually pending around tech protection. I am different from the city attorney in the sense that I don't manage through retaliation and fear and surveilling employee emails. When I've managed teams of over 50 attorneys across 8 cities, I start from a place of respect. I listen to expertise. And that's exactly who I'll be as city attorney. That's why Attorney General Rob Bonta and several city attorneys trust me to manage this office responsibly, to work with the experts, to fill in the gaps like tech that I don't know, and make sure we're protecting your data.
Thank you. And to you, Mr. McKinney.
You stole my thunder, you realize.
Sorry about
Been waiting all night to talk about that data breach.
Well, you know what? We'll do a replay. We'll pretend we didn't hear it. Go ahead. Try again.
Look, we've talked tonight about all the important responsibilities that the city attorney has and manages. The city attorney's office deserves a world-class information technology system. And the way things are happening in the tech world today, no sooner than we get one, it'll be outdated. In the DA's office, I've had the privilege over the last year of watching our office acquire and start to implement a new system. And it takes years, folks. It takes years. But it starts with the leader going around the office and talking to the people who actually do the work and ask them, what do you need in a system that will work for you and work for people? Once all that information is gathered, then you go about the business of trying to acquire a contract with a company that can provide what the office needs. And as city attorney, I would look to do that very quickly because I know I'll be running for re-election by the time the system is actually implemented. But none of that matters. The best system in the world doesn't matter if, as city attorney, you don't take reasonable steps to protect information in the way the current city attorney did not do.
Thank you. We were over here negotiating about how to proceed because we started a little bit late and we're trying to get you guys out of here by 7. So the idea is, I'm going to let you guys vote, believe it or not. You can either, you can,
Very democratic.
yes, I'm going to be very, yes. So you can either answer one more question and then have 60 seconds after that to then give your closing remarks, or I can give you 2 minutes each just to give your closing remarks. What's your vote?
One more question?
Question.
Question.
Oh, okay. Well, the majority wins. Okay. And if you guys want to stay an extra 10 minutes, we can ask 2 questions. I'm just saying. They're saying, no, I'm leaving. Okay. Okay, let's ask this question. We talked a lot about affirmative litigation, and I've seen some of you guys have been itching to talk about affirmative litigation, right? So the LA City Attorney has historically brought litigation on behalf of the people. What are your priorities with respect to bringing affirmative litigation? And I'm going to start with you, Ms. Ashouri.
I think that we have to really utilize the state courts right now in order to protect our constituents. That's in order to sue landlords to protect renters from illegal rent increases, code violations. We want to also sue employers, as the city of LA is the capital of wage theft. We want to sue polluters in order to make sure that we're protecting the constituents. And we also want to sue these private companies that are behind these horrible detention centers like Geo Group and Core Civic. And Colorado has already taken a case right now regarding this, and the Supreme Court has already stated that these organizations don't have immunity. So we do have a pathway towards this. Newark has already sued to stop the opening of a detention facility, so it has another blueprint. But federal court is right now not friendly to us because our city actually joined a case in federal court against racial profiling of our constituents, and that led the Supreme Court to actually legalize racial profiling in the case of immigration enforcement. So our Supreme Court is not in our favor. But also, we want to make sure that we're taking these cases to court and actually vociferously litigating them. The case of Monsanto that Hydee actually inherited from Mike Feuer, she settled for $35 million in comparison to $160 million in a comparative case in Seattle. I would not settle for that.
Okay. She stopped right on time. Go ahead, Ms. Roy.
Let me tell you, I cannot wait to be unleashed to go after all of the abusive corporations, because that is what I have done my entire career, and it's what I have the most experience at this table doing. A lot of people don't realize this, but the largest theft in this city is actually wage theft, stealing billions of dollars from workers' pockets every year. And I am the only attorney who has built, litigated, and won wage theft cases, putting tens of thousands of dollars back in workers' pockets. And I'm not going to stop there. I'm also the attorney who's gone after bad landlords and won back $500,000 for tenants. So I'm also going to be suing all the abusive landlords who are unlawfully evicting people, who are keeping people in uninhabitable and unspeakable conditions. I'm also going to be going after the corporate polluters, which is something I've done as well. Going after the polluters who are dumping in underserved neighborhoods, who are lying about the impacts of climate change. And I'm going to go after big tech, because that's what I'm doing currently. Suing the richest, one of the richest companies in the world for harming our kids. There is no company that is too big for me to sue. And I am so excited to grow the work of this office because I'm not beholden to corporations like the current city attorney who will take any money she can get. I am a people-powered candidate who has the record of a people-powered candidate. And this is the work that I have the most experience of any lawyer up here doing.
Thank you. Mr. McKinney.
As city attorney, our office will bring lawsuits when necessary to protect the people of Los Angeles and the city itself. You've heard some situations in which lawsuits would be justified. We will sue slumlords. We will sue polluters. We will go after those who defraud the city. We'll go after any organization that contracted with the city but didn't provide the services that the city was entitled to. We'll be looking for that fraud and corruption, and if we find it in significant amounts, I'll call my friend at the DA's office, and they will look at it. We might have to sue other government entities. As city attorney, I will defend our laws, our policies, our values, and our way of life. So if the federal government comes into Los Angeles and starts to violate people's rights, they can expect, as city attorney, our office will stand up to them. And that's not just true for the federal government, that's true for the state government, the county government, or anybody who comes into Los Angeles and violates the way that we live and our values. But as in the case of defending lawsuits, there has to be a strategy. We won't just go about suing because we can. It has to make sense. It can't be political and it can't be performative.
Thank you. And to you, Ms. Feldstein-Soto.
Feldstein-Soto.
Feldstein.
Thank you, Your Honor. Not a problem. I gather my name is difficult.
I'm Songhai Dominique Pura Miguda Armstead. I apologize.
It's not a problem. I formed the first public rights branch in the history of the city attorney's office, and I did that so that we would bring all affirmative litigation under one roof. Instead of having a couple of lawyers in the litigation department responsible for affirmative litigation in the name of the city, and various civil prosecutors who had no right to access criminal databases because all they ever did was bring civil lawsuits in the criminal branch, I brought everybody together. And I focused very much on all of the aspects of affirmative litigation. That includes public rights in consumer protection arenas, particularly when it comes to the pollution and the poisoning of products that are aimed at communities of color. It includes environmental justice and making sure that we are going after polluters, that making sure we are cleaning up decades-old problems, whether it's the 40-year issue on Figueroa Street with motels and nuisances, to the party houses that have been in existence for more than 20 years in our Hollywood Hills, to the Santa Susana cleanup, the illegal dumping where I've partnered with CD9, or the other initiatives that we need to get on with respect to tenant anti-harassment. I've been focused on that. I hired the first tenant anti-harassment lawyer without authority from council.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Feldstein-Soto. And I'm actually going to do judicial discretion, and I'm going to ask you guys one more question. I'm just curious, and I don't know if you guys are, budgets are crazy, right? And everything keeps on getting cut. I don't know about you, but I know in the county, the state, every time we look, money's getting cut. And I'm curious about what their priorities would be. I don't know what you guys think. I kind of want to hear what that would be. Yeah, okay. So I was going to let it slide, but I'm going to come back to there. I want to, because the office has so many different parts. Everybody's job is the most important job. And I want to know, in tight budget times, how are you going to balance and handle your budget? What are you going to prioritize and still improve public safety, strengthen accountability, and make sure you maintain the confidence of, the community? And we'll start with you.
Sure.
Ms. Roy.
Of course. It's important that we realize every part of the city attorney's office is important. And so we need to make sure that our budget reflects that. I would be creative about our strategies we can use so that when we're facing tough times, we're being smart about how we use our money. And actually, one of the ways to do that is to grow affirmative litigation. What people don't realize, because I have the unique experience doing this work at the city, is that when we bring these consumer protection lawsuits and when we win, the civil penalties funds future consumer protection litigation. So other cities that have scaled up this work, it's currently 5% at the city attorney's office. San Francisco, it's around 15%, and that is a revenue generating section. It doesn't take from the other positions in the budget. Our city attorney isn't structured like that because she doesn't do enough of this work. But under me, I will scale up the public interest work. And as we start winning for workers, for renters, for consumers, we also will be able to fund more of this work and free up the budget positions for elsewhere in the city attorney's office. That is the model of the California Department of Justice. That is the model of the San Francisco City Attorney. And it's time we start acting like other peer law offices that recognize their role is to serve the people. And we need to reflect that in our budget and in our priorities as well.
Thank you. And to you, Mr. McKinney.
Yeah, I think that the office has to be modernized and the office has to grow. We need more attorneys to keep more work in-house. We can't continue to spend $1,500 to $2,000 an hour on white shoe lawyers doing work that we can do in-house. And along with that, we have to bring in experts to review the policies and practices of all our departments in an effort to cut down the unforced errors, the $250 to $300 million in losses that this city loses every day, money that can go toward fixing our streets and programming for children, healthcare. I mean, all the wonderful things that we'd rather our tax dollars go to. I think we have to invest in cutting the losses. Aside from that, public safety. You know, I come back to that because when LA is safe, people feel confident, they feel good, they go outside, they engage in commerce, they spend money. Who makes money when people spend money? The city makes money. So those are the areas that I would prioritize as city attorney.
Thank you. Ms. Feldstein-Soto.
Thank you. I'm going to start by making a couple of corrections for Ms. Roy. The City Attorney's Office Public Rights Group is the only office in the entire state of California that has to split its recoveries in the public rights arena with the County of Los Angeles. It is something that we have tried to change in Sacramento twice and failed. It used to be us and San Diego. San Diego got itself exempted when then Mayor Gloria went up to Sacramento, and we've been trying to do the same thing. Hard to make money when you're turning over 50% of what you earn to the county. I would also like to correct Mr. McKinney. We have to do a lot of things. At the end of the day, we do not create the liabilities, the departments do. And it is our job to defend them. We can make recommendations, we always do. We make suggestions as to what they should do differently. We provide training. I refused to settle a case until the fire department changed a practice that had resulted in our being sued 8 times under my predecessor, all of which were settled. And finally, when I refused to settle, we got the practice changed. So yes, there's a lot to be done, and I have started work on all of that. I've made significant progress in each of those arenas. As I look forward, I intend to continue to focus on protecting kids, violence against our communities, party houses, and safety and quality of life in our neighborhoods, on drafting ordinances that are clear and readable to the average person, and preparing for difficult times. I'm the only person up here with budget experience, and it's not time for on-the-job training.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ashouri.
Sorry, could I restart with the applause?
We're good. We'll give you another 5 seconds. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. I want to make sure that people know these are unionized, protected jobs, and so we can't just shift around what they're doing. But we do get money from outside the state. We've gotten a grant for wage theft prosecution of $850,000 last year, and so there is money to do that type of work. As well, enforcing the tenant anti-harassment ordinance actually brings in attorney's fees. And this was an issue before when the legislation was actually modified, and now it's mandatory attorney's fees. And that's something I faced when I was actually working in legal aid, and as the only candidate up here that's actually worked directly with tenants and on Skid Row and other clinics who are facing tenant anti-harassment issues. And I think by utilizing prosecutorial discretion, we can actually minimize the impacts of the prosecutor's office on the community. We can actually minimize the expenses which are going to trial on frivolous cases, which I would say, for instance, a case where a guy who was just, a young man, 18-year-old, just charging his cell phone, was being prosecuted for utility theft. That was a waste of our time. And we also, I would like to say, do create liabilities when we don't enforce laws like Measure HLA, which we actually end up getting sued for because of the private right to sue in that case. So I think that the city attorney has to enforce its laws.
Perfect. You guys are in luck. We have 5 minutes. So each candidate will be able to give a 60-second closing. We're starting with you, Mr. McKinney. Go.
You know, when I came here in the mid-'90s, I was certain I was going right back. I'd grab my degree and go right back home. I thought LA was crazy. You're the criminal street gang capital of the world, earthquakes, mudslides. I'm in and I'm out. But it wasn't, 2 months of this incredible weather, this climate, this wonderful geography, the bold and colorful tapestry of the culture and the people here, the amazing food. I thought this is the best destination in the world. And I love my family, but Mom, I'm not going home. I'm staying in LA. But today, LA doesn't feel like that. It's lost its vibrancy. It's lost its confidence. And part of the reason that I'm leaving a very comfortable job that I'm very familiar with in the DA's office to run for city attorney is because I want to take up the challenge to get us back on our feet. And that's why I'm running.
Thank you. Ms. Feldstein-Soto, it's your turn.
Thank you. Experience matters. This really isn't a time or a place for on-the-job training. Between the budget and the upcoming Olympics, between the many challenges that face us, I'm hitting the ground running, and I have been doing this work now for 3.5 years. I've brought together coalitions across the city, whether it's the Coalition for the Figueroa Street Initiative or the 22 cities in the county, to get ICE and the National Guard off of our streets. I work collaboratively in a multi-agency context, and I do it without caring who gets the credit. I care about getting the work done. I am here to serve, here for kids, here for seniors, here for abuelitas and quinceañeras. I am here having never run for office before, unlike Mr. McKinney, and promising to never run for any other office again, which is a promise I don't think anybody else on this stage is willing to make honestly. So I'd like another 4 years to get the job finished and done.
Thank you. Ms. Ashouri.
Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to have this panel. I have the experience exactly that Hydee is talking about. I've been an attorney for more than a decade. I've worked at the United Nations, at the Department of Justice, and at 2 different city attorneys' offices, including legal aid as well. And beyond just working as an attorney, I've been an activist and advocate for more than 25 years. And that on-the-ground experience, working with people who are actually engaging in work in our communities, the ones that are actually defending our communities from ICE right now, is unparalleled. And that's why that I'm actually supported by the activists doing the work on the ground. And it's so important because I'm here to represent the old couple that is being kicked out of their home because of private equity. I'm here to represent the asthmatic kids and communities of color that are being basically pummeled with pollution from polluters. And I'm here to make sure that ICE officers are prosecuted and that our sanctuary policies are upheld, because I've been doing the work on the ground for decades, and I'm going to do the work in City Hall.
Ms. Roy.
Experience for this role matters, but what matters most is the relevance of that experience. The incumbent is a corporate bankruptcy attorney who has only succeeded in plunging our own city into bankruptcy. I have 3 times the government experience as her. I have the most experience suing the Trump administration. I am the only person with experience building and winning wage theft cases, and I have the most experience bringing tenants' rights, civil enforcement actions. That is the work that I am qualified to do as city attorney, and it is the reason why I have the largest coalition of labor unions, Democratic clubs, and advocacy organizations supporting my candidacy, including the California Democratic Party and LA County Democratic Party. It is the reason that Attorney General Rob Bonta, the San Francisco City Attorney, the San Diego City Attorney, and the Oakland City Attorney have endorsed me, because they need a partner in the fight against Trump, they need a partner in consumer protection, and I am a partner who they have worked with, who they trust, and who they know has the right experience for this role.
Thank you. And with that, I would like to give a round of applause to all of our speakers today. Thank you so much for your participation. A round of applause to you all for being here and being an engaging group audience here. We're so thankful. And on behalf of the LA County Bar Association and the Women Lawyers Association of Los Angeles, thank you for coming and participating. Drink, eat, and be merry, and have a wonderful trip home.